there, and welcome to this month's edition of Real Estate Matters with Clare Girton and myself, Ayse Clare. This is a show about matters in real estate, that real estate matters and is quite important, and how real estate affects us and our local neighborhoods. For some, real estate is the largest investment. Both Clare and I are residential realtors focused right here on the main line and surrounding areas. Right now, we continue to be in some interesting times in the real estate market, and we aim to bring you actual stories, some scenarios, and some terms that may assist you in the understanding of residential real estate. And we hope to blend in a little bit of humor as well. We thought about our topic today to be a day in the life of a realtor. And we thought about some perhaps assumptions that consumers and clients have, and some share with us what those assumptions are. Some ask us questions, and we kind of put together a list of what we hear most often, and we wanted to kind of unpack that and share with you our thoughts about what some of those assumptions might look like from our point of view, doing this on a daily basis for many, many years. You know, some of our perspectives might be a little bit different, whereas I'm on a team and Clare is an individual agent. So we will be sure to mention that as we, tackle some of these behind the scenes questions, right?
And we have two perspectives, right?
Yeah. So
you run a team of 6 full-time people, and I'm a sole agent.
Yeah, which I once was. So I hear you. I think the first one that we wanted to address was, I always wanted to be a realtor, but I don't want to work the weekends.
We hear that all the time. I mean, how many times are you at a party or on the sidelines of your child's game and someone approaches you, or on the phone and says, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a realtor. I just love houses. I love people. I think I can do this." And that makes sense when you think about real estate. It's the one profession, there may be others, where a lot of access to what happens in real estate is online, with big national firms and local markets. And a lot of times you can see why people think, oh, this is something I could do. And then when they ask you that, and then they say, but I don't want to work weekends. So what are your reactions to those kinds of discussions and questions?
Well, I love to hear that. Yeah. You're right. There is a lot of access to data and information online more now than ever, and it will continue to be, in my opinion. So to speak, we do work weekends. We work during the week and we work weekends. And so I kind of wanted to maybe disseminate that a little bit more, because we do have some flexibility during the work week. For example, if we need to run to a doctor's appointment, if we need to leave early to attend or get our child to their baseball game or something, we can fill those in. I usually fill those into my schedule. I'm very by the schedule. Fill those in as a meeting or appointment slots. But I know that on the weekend, more so, we're going to make up for that by having a showing or an open house, or need to go door knocking or something like that to fill up that time that I took, personally during the week.
What does your structure look like for the week? What's a typical week look like?
So my structure is going to be a little bit different from other realtors. So I mainly focus on working with sellers on my team and running the team. So those are my main 2 responsibilities. So for a single agent like you're going to wear lots of hats. I'm wearing mainly 2 hats only. So every day I start my day at the same time. I always look at social media, and I do this strategically to message people strategically if it's their birthday. So I always do that. That's something I've built into my schedule, because I think that's really important, connecting with them behind the scenes. And then I always go to the multiple listing service, the second activity I do. So my day is almost quite structured. And what I will do in about 17 local school districts is to check what's new on market in the past 24 hours. So I do this daily. There's rarely a day I will miss. What's new on market, what's coming soon, what went under contract, what pended, and what settled, and for what price, how many days on market, all of that. And as I go through that every day, I will send an email to somebody in my mind that I know lives in that area, lives on that street, lives in that neighborhood, that might find that information or that data interesting. Oh, hey, your neighbor just listed their home. Check it out. Or, hey, this just sold. I know you've been toying with the idea of listing your home. I think this piece of information will just be another little nugget for you as you think about that. So I'm always thinking about people. I'm intaking the data, and I do that daily to just stay on top of the market.
What do you do for your team? What responsibilities are you available at a certain amount of time to answer questions for your team, or do you delegate jobs? How does that work?
We have something called Slack on our team, where that's just a communication portal, so to speak. So we can message with one person or the whole group or just a group of sales, team. But often throughout the week, we have our standard one-on-ones. So myself and one person will talk for maybe 30 minutes about how they're thinking, like their goals are going. What can I help them with? What do they need to see more of me? What are you doing on a daily basis? What has been a struggle or a challenge? What do you see as a win in the past couple of weeks? So we have that in as a recurring event. And then, so I try to keep myself pretty accessible to the team whenever possible. And then in the afternoon, I'm either reaching out to sellers, email comes kind of between there, and then in the afternoon reaching out to prospective sellers and or going on a listing appointment with a seller. Yeah, and so when I'm not going on a listing appointment, I'm doing something that hopefully leads me to an appointment, which is that lead generation piece. And I know we wanted to talk more about it, but I'm going to throw that question back to you because your daily may be very different from my daily. What's your daily look like being a single agent wearing many hats, Claire?
So, thank you for asking. So a lot of my day looks a lot like yours, which is, so our business is mainly our communication and contact with our lead generation, which is our customers. And I do something very similar. My mornings are structured just like yours, which is I familiarize myself with what's happening in the market daily. You said 17 school districts. I was thinking, probably about 12.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's still quite a lot.
A little bit more focused, like, Delaware County, Chester County, Montgomery County. So, and I do that same piece, which is really understand the market on a daily basis. And then also connect with those people and contacts and my past clients that I think would benefit from that information. So I do chunk out a good part of my morning for that. And then my afternoon is also a little bit different, which is I don't run a team, but I'm very eager to grow as a professional. So I try to do something to educate myself in terms of marketing, the way agents can learn more and be better equipped for all the things that go on in our world.
So maybe it could be a class, a webinar,
totally,
Zoom.
Exactly,
Okay.
class. Exactly what you're exactly.
Wonderful.
So, that's how I spend a lot of my afternoons. A little bit, and then of course, then at the beginning of the week, I set up my week that if I have something slotted, like a listing appointment or a meeting with buyers, I put those in first. But I make sure that I add those hours for that, what we would call lead generation. Some questions we get asked a lot is, or I've heard this over the years. Oh, when you show up at the office in the morning, do they just hand out the customers to you, like the houses that you're going to sell? And that always makes me giggle, because that really doesn't happen in our profession. There may be some offices out there where there might be somebody who says, oh, here, take this one. But mostly it's a referral business. And
I was going to ask, so specifically then, what are you doing? Where are you getting your clients from if the office is not handing them out to you?
It's a great question. So our clients come from trusted relationships, right? So I'll just give you a perfect example. One of my very first clients happened to be a nanny of somebody that I worked with, knew pretty well, and that client ended up buying a condo, and then she sold that condo and now bought a house with her husband. And over the years, we have built a relationship, and it was because she trusted me that we started, and that's how you build more relationships.
That's awesome.
With their experiences.
So then a big part of what we're doing, you're saying, in a given day is lead generation. And so then what's your weekend going to look like? Since that's what you're working all weekend. What does the weekend typically look like for you as a single agent? That's
another great question. So the weekends, yes, I am working on the weekends, but I have some control over that. So say you have two buyers that are going to they're looking at houses on the weekends. Weekends are mostly when you're looking. I will set that up going into the weekend and saying, okay, I have these hours, 9 to 12 on a Saturday morning, and I have something in the afternoon that I'm not available, or I have all day Sunday. So I set that up with my active buyers going into the weekend. And if in the off chance that I'm away for the weekend, or I have, we all have families and things, or I have a sporting event, I also work closely with some colleagues of ours and that fill in for me, and I pay them hourly as an expense, and then I still am available to do some of the, if there's, for example, 2 weekends ago, I was away and we went under contract, and I did all of the contract work and the administrative work and the negotiations.
So it sounded like you leveraged a colleague for their time to help you or assisting you with getting that buyer client through the home
showing, exactly.
Yeah, through that home showing, and then he or she kind of passed the baton back to you. Even though you were away, you still had access to your computer, documents, and things of that nature.
So how did it go for you when you moved towards a team? How did that change for you for your weekends?
Yeah, I mean, like you, and at that time I did not have any children, so I was very available, and the weekends could be quite full. I remember starting lots of Saturdays and Sundays at 9 o'clock into the day, and then Sundays would be also open houses. Typically, I know they've changed a bit on when the open houses will be, but that was back in the day. So the weekend would be chock full. Now, similar to you, we have leverage in people. So we have our buyer's agents and our showing partners who will be, out on the streets doing that. And for our team, our goal is to move through these roles as you progress. So kind of the starting point is the showing partner, which I think is a very strategic person, because they're going to be interfacing with the client more so at all of these showings. They're going to be representing kind of the brand of the team. So they're super important and be relaying information and communicating with the client face to face, boots on the ground. So they're so important. And then the role of the person who's going to write the offer and kind of strategize, put the heads together with what the terms might look like, is going to be the buyer's agent. So they're going to work all in tandem with the showing partner, the client, buyer's agent, all work together over that maybe weekend time if it should happen. So then that kind of leaves me, I don't often schedule many listing appointments over the weekend. Kind of leaves me aside, but I had plenty of time where I worked weekends. It wasn't until maybe 5 years or so ago where I did not any longer work weekends, but it was plenty of time that I had.
But ultimately, you're responsible. It's your team. So so then I'm
always on.
So those your partners, your listing, your showing partner, all the people on your team still will sometimes contact you.
Absolutely.
And say, okay, this is what's happening. Here's a situation.
Oh, absolutely.
So it does fall to you.
Absolutely. So I'm still in the morning going to like look at the social media and then look at the multiple listing service to see what's happening in the market. But then I'm not most likely going to have a set appointment, but I'm there via email, text, call for our buyer's agents and showing partners behind the scenes. I know I can usually be anywhere to field those calls and questions, no problem. So it's rare a time that I'm just like down and out. Although if for a vacation, I will set expectations with our team, but it's rare I'm not checking some device.
You've brought up a great point. It's important for us. I don't know if I'll ask you if you agree or not. It's important for us to schedule those vacation times because it's very easy to get caught and say that you could work 365. I mean, it feels like that sometimes. So I find, and Ayse, you tell me this, I find I'm actually a better prepared and a better agent and better able to help my sellers and buyers by being super clear with my schedule and how I'm available, because that way I can actually be more available.
And so tell us about that. How do you get super clear with your schedule? What does that look like for you and for the client? So that you can still be there for the client. What does that look like?
Every week, I set my calendar literally right in blocks for what is happening for the next week.
So you're time blocking.
I time block, absolutely. And I've done it more. The more I do the job, the work, the more I do this. And if I'm taking a week vacation, I start 3 weeks earlier telling all of any active clients, sometimes you don't know when someone's going to be active. Sometimes it comes, sometimes
out of the blue.
It pops out of the blue. Sometimes people have been like, I'm going to be selling. And then it sort of comes up. So I will, if I know some clients are on the horizon, like a listing, they're waiting to list, I will start 3 weeks earlier and say, I'm going to be away for this week. I want to work around your schedule as well. So I'm focused and actively look at my schedule weekly and then beforehand so that I can set those expectations, because I do want to be available. It's really important to me as a sole agent to be super responsive as the point person, and that's how I'm building. Someday maybe I'll be on a team or have a team, but for now, this is how I have to set my schedule.
So it sounds like you're super preemptive. You're preemptive with yourself by looking at the calendar, knowing what's going to come up, not just next week, the week after that, but also having those conversations with your clients ahead of time, not scrambling in the moment. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't pretty.
No, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so to not take away from that responsiveness, real responsiveness, because to me that's the most important part of my business is that I don't ever not want to be responsive, however that looks.
Yeah, and that had tied into our second assumption was you have so much flexibility in your schedule, or you create your own schedule.
Right.
It sounds like that we actually work our schedule by time blocking and time blocking those pieces. And some people are like, well, how do you do that? Well, each and every day though, you'll have some time for set activity. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this. If you erase, you must replace. So if you've erased it out of your schedule because you got caught up doing something else, then you have to put it in your schedule somewhere else where it can fit, right? And that's in order to, I don't want to say get everything done, but get those must-dos. What do they say? Eat that frog. Get those must-dos.
Right, eat that frog.
out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Sure. We really added a lot to that. Another one. I love houses. It must be so fun to tour houses all day. I love that question.
Or in that statement, I agree with you. I've heard, how many times have you heard, oh my gosh, I love houses. I love designing. I would love to do that. I would love to just, I love architecture. I could spend all day doing that. How much of the day do you spend actually on that piece in the work we do?
Well, my day, very, very little. If I happen to have an appointment with a seller that day or in that week, I'm looking at their home and possibly viewing a couple of properties that might be comparable to their home that's on market. But I'm doing a lot of work on the MLS looking at homes from a comparable standpoint, but I do it more from a data perspective of the aesthetics, the square footage, the bedrooms, the bath, the basement, the topography of the lot. So I'm looking at those details.
The value of the properties.
Yeah, days on market, those kind of stats versus actually like, oh, looking how someone decorated that. I mean, I do take that into consideration, and I snap a photo or two, but I'm not touring houses all day. It's so much, that's just a small segment. For our showing partner, she's definitely touring lots of houses, but she needs to be constantly in rapport with the client, less focused on the home, but more focused on what the client's saying and the feedback and the nonverbal and verbal feedback that the client's given. That's priority.
And when you go out on listing appointments, oftentimes you're not really focusing on the design of the home.
I'm not. And this is what I've found. I really need to get really focused and caught up in the rapport with the client and asking questions. So what I've done, because sometimes I have found myself, I'm like, what did the home look like? You can remember a couple things, but I'm really focused on the person I'm talking to. I'll snap some quick photos on my iPhone.
Same.
And I say, may I snap some photos?
Same.
This is just for my memory purposes. These are not for marketing purposes. That way I'll be able to go back, and as I start comparing, contrasting for pricing purposes, it'll all be there. I will, have, oh yeah, that's what that room looked like. Oh yeah, they did upgrade the flooring or, the cabinets, but not the countertop, and really be able to dissect those nuances in the home. How about you?
I totally agree is when you go on a listing appointment, your first priority, one is your sellers. Where are they? What's their priorities? What are their timeframes? What are their needs? And then I often do the same thing where, of course, you've been in some lovely homes and you can appreciate beautiful finishes and things is fantastic.
Or craftsmanship.
It's a wonderful side effect of the work we do. But most often I am roof, systems.
Oh, infrastructure, yeah.
Square footage, flooring, exactly more, what the property lines look like. Would it be something that you could add on to? I focus there so that I can really start to focus on the value so that I can be better prepared to give a seller reasons and data. Exactly. So you go to the MLS and use your comps. So I do have the same thing where that's kind of almost the last thing that happens is you're like, oh, and this is gorgeously.
And the home,
gorgeously decorated. I'm looking at windows. I'm a big fan. I'm always like, okay, nice.
Some details.
Yeah, windows. So it is an interesting thing because it is different of what, when we first got into the business, I thought that would be like. It's very much about the people that live there, not the actual home.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Real estate is a people business.
Yeah. Right. So that's
and
where
homes
we start.
just come with it.
The homes come with it.
Yeah.
That is the medium, right? That is what we work in. But we're really working with the wants and needs of buyers and sellers.
Yeah. And they vary.
And properties vary. And it's always, I always find it, I really enjoy a listing appointment because you can really focus on things that are, the needs of these sellers. And oftentimes it doesn't always mean just bottom dollar, but you do have to be sensitive, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
It's such a fine balance.
It's a fine balance.
Yeah. And so part of that question is, touring homes all day, you must love it, must be so fun. Or you also hear, I love homes, I love staging. This would be a good career for me. It very well might be.
Talk to me about staging. What does staging look like to you?
We had another show on staging, kind of unpacked it a little bit more, but staging is how you're presenting the home to market. And it's extremely different on how we live in a home. When we wake up, we're not presenting our home to the market, although there's a rare few of people that their home always looks the same way, no matter who's over, what's happening. But realistically, we're not going to be picking up everything after ourselves and having it show ready, lights on. So that's staging. It's really ready for making it market ready, kind of mass appeal to the home. And so myself as a realtor, I've been fortunate to understand the concept of staging, and there's different facets to it. The basic, fortunately, I'm so focused on building that relationship with the client that we have our strategic partners that will help us stage, that know that arena inside and out. That we rely on. I'm not delivering the information to the homeowner. So to me, I want to be the person to help them prepare it from the perspective of pricing and strategy based on their goals. But I want to pull in my strategic partner to help me with the staging, or really help them with the staging. Because they do that day in and day out. I'm looking at the data and more focused on the client. What about you? How does that look to you?
I do that very similar thing is that I work with a strategic partner who's organizer, stager, and I, cover first couple of hours of her time. And I see staging in kind of two segments. The first is, how do we take things away or move things or organize things so that for photos and marketing and for showing, it is ready for people to come in and use, not get cluttered, for lack of a better word, in their brains of what they're seeing. And then there's the next part of staging, which is if a house is empty, or if you need to bring in more furniture or things that might help enhance the spaces. But mostly it's to just organize and take some things away and maybe show something in a better light.
Move some things around. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Move some things around, take some things out of a closet, so that it just kind of helps to reduce the amount of extra stimulus. And that's how I have come to really appreciate my strategic partners in that as well. As I don't see myself as the person what I'm really good at. I really rely on somebody else who does that well.
Lean on the other professional.
I totally do.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You do as well.
We do that as well. Also, part of that staging to me, and I think we spoke about this earlier, is like bringing in the handyman or the home inspector to just identify not just what could be aesthetics, but some of that infrastructure that may need attention behind the scenes.
Or even have, the furnace serviced, or things that you can do that help actually with the staging, because you put that on there, the day it was just been serviced, it helps.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pre-listing items.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the time. One other one I wanted to add here as an assumption.
Yes.
Or behind the scenes, we get this often is, I don't want to bother you with real estate questions. You're so busy. I know you're busy with your clients. How would you break that down? What does that mean to you when we hear that? I've heard that a lot.
I think we all hear that, right? Is that sometimes people in our sphere and our circle and our acquaintances and a lot of people we know assume that we have already set clients. And really, everyone, my goal is to be available to share my expertise where I can. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will be my clients, but if I can help them with real estate, it's really helpful to a buyer and a seller who might not otherwise have that information. So I always approach it this way. I'm never too busy. I'm never too busy to talk about the work that I love to do. And I will say that right out loud. No, please, let me help you set you in the right direction. Maybe it's even very recently, I had somebody who had a parent's house to sell in New York State, in Westchester County. We had a long conversation, and I just gave him some ideas, some talking points, so that he could go ahead and hook up with somebody to help him in that area. And he really appreciated it, and I really appreciated it because it gave me an opportunity to work. It doesn't necessarily mean that it translates to, a customer.
Yeah.
But
business per se.
But it does build your business.
Yeah. It builds trust with that person. I mean, I think a lot of us have our fingers on the pulse doing this day in and day out. We breathe, sleep, eat real estate often because it's such a fast-paced type of business and can be always going on. And I think when you think of somebody in your sphere, I need to know more about this, you're going to go to someone, or you think you should go to someone that's going to know a lot about something. And we want to encourage people to reach out to us for that matter. We're not doing anything with that information. We might be remembering it. We're not regurgitating to anyone. Anything we hear, we're keeping it in confidentiality, because that's part of our agency relationship, I think, as we talked about inherently, is to keep things confidential as people are speaking to us, not only as a customer, also as a client.
Do we have time to dig into that into agency?
I think we're ready to wrap this up. So maybe for another day.
Yes, yeah, okay, for sure.
Yeah. So do you want to close it out for us?
Yeah. So that was really fascinating. And again, always we get to the end of our time together, and we learn so much. I learned so much from you, Ayse, is just talking about all of your experiences and my own. And I think it's helpful to I'm really looking to a way to build our profession and the trust in our profession overall. And I think our conversations do that. So this one was fun because I think we talked about some behind the scenes real estate ideas that maybe a common, client or anyone might not know.
Yeah. And we encourage, our viewers to reach out to us should they have any questions, behind the scenes questions, becoming a realtor.
Oh, yes.
More about the day in the life of.
Yes.
Income, what does that look like? There's so many things doing it as long as we have that we've learned, and our perspectives are really only our perspectives.
Exactly.
There's others that do have way different, schedules and things, but this is what we've come to know and
Thank you
grow
for
on.
saying that as well. Is when people do come to you and say, I wish I was a realtor, I always say, please try. It is a great profession. I highly recommend to try and be, and because maybe it would be a great thing for you, and you don't know until you try.
For sure.
And there's plenty for everybody to try.
And that piece is, the key is relationships, and building trust around those relationships, to me, is the key of a successful realtor.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right. I love it. Thank you always for your time and your perspective around
You're the best.
life in general.
All right.
Good to see you.
And you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching.